Business, and I'm here with my colleague Vishal Dev from WWF India, the Director of Sustainable Business, with our first LinkedIn Live this year for CRB's annual sustainability conference, which is going to be held in the India Habitat Center, New Delhi, from the 6th to the 8th of November. The theme of the conference this year, as you can see from the backdrop, is connected with sustainability solutions and the role of policy, innovation, and collaboration. The session that we are going to co-host together with WWF will be held on the 7th of November from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. India time, and we have discussed and decided together with WWF to host this session on looking at the alignment of sustainability in the policy landscape of soft commodities in India. As you might be aware, there are a number of international legislations which are being currently developed, with some being developed already, which is likely to have implication on the trade and investment related to soft commodities like palm oil, pulp, and timber, and so on and so forth. And therefore, this session that we are going to do with WWF is going to bring together representatives from the private sector, from the government, and other international organizations to really talk about and unclutter the developments at the international level on these legislations in the supply chain, particularly aligned with what internationally is being looked at in terms of deforestation and commodities, the expansion of agri-commodities, and we will also talk about what implication does it have both for policy and for practice in India. So on that note, here's welcoming you once again, Vishal, to this LinkedIn Live, and we are extremely grateful that we continue to partner with WWF India on this very, very important topic. Maybe as we start this conversation, it will be very useful for the listeners who've joined in today to understand from you, Vishal, about the work that the division that you lead on sustainable business at WWF India. What does the division do, and how does it look at sustainability issues? So maybe you can provide a brief introduction to that. Over to you.
Thanks, Rijit. Thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. WWF as an organization has been better known for conservation of earth and wildlife and biodiversity and ecosystem conservation. And over the years, we have evolved and understood that working on reduction of footprint, ecological footprint, is integral to conservation of biodiversity. And that is why most of our, significant of our efforts are towards ecological footprint reduction. Within this initiative, Sustainable Business Program works with the businesses for supporting them in mainstreaming sustainability into their supply chain, into their operations, and into their day-to-day functioning, so that the businesses support the larger goal of biodiversity conservation. And as the regulation and the fundings around the ecosystem is getting skewed towards sustainable, it has been becoming very important for businesses to get aware about the material risks involved in their supply chain. And this complete initiative of identifying material risk in the soft commodities supply chain, as you spoke, Rijit, has become so integral that we have been working in this area for, I think, close to a decade now, wherein most of our focus right now is on palm, timber, rubber, and soy. So having said that, we have program on sustainable supply chain of palm oil. And we also help businesses and support businesses in the area or other sectors like energy transition, circular economy, promoting sustainable ways of finance when we are working on sustainable ways to support businesses in achieving these goals. So with this idea and with this vision in mind, this program is very important for the organization globally, not only in India, to help the cause reach to the businesses. Over to you, Rajat.
Great. Thanks, Vishal, for that very detailed introduction. And it's extremely important. I think 2 or 3 things that you mentioned, which are critical. One is this whole focus on palm oil, and given that that this is something that we have seen in our initiative, in our joint initiative, and also with other partners, that India being the biggest importer and the second largest consumer of palm oil, and the fact that we have reliance on the import of palm oil from mostly Indonesia and Malaysia, and of course there is also a small yet increasing percentage of domestic production which the government has now promoted in India. So it is very, very important that we sort of convene the government, the private sector, and organizations to come together and especially ensure that the India story on palm oil is sustainable and it has sustainability as one of its key elements. And that whole industry is built on the principle of sustainability. And it's great to see that a lot of private sector companies are taking interest on this issue when we engage with them on this subject. As you were also highlighting, and I mentioned this earlier, the focus of the conversation and the session that we are going to host on the 7th afternoon India time, we are going to talk about the developments that have happened or are happening globally, where especially the European Union, but not just the European Union, also the United States and United Kingdom and several other countries are coming up with very stringent regulations, which will require the Indian industry to prepare themselves as we move forward in this whole in terms of the whole global value chain of soft commodities. So from WWF's perspective, as far as this session is concerned, Vishal, what are some of the key takeaways that you are expecting from this conversation that we are going to host together on the 7th of November? If you can probably share some thoughts, it might also increase the interest among our listeners, and perhaps they will also join us at the Habitat Center. So if you can share some thoughts on what are your expectations from this conversation.
Yeah, so actually, as you rightly mentioned, the ecosystem is getting skewed towards sustainable supply chain, and various economies, various countries are coming out with stringent regulation to protect their interest in sustainability. Like European Union has come out with related regulation on deforestation, and similarly, US has some regulation around it. And we would see many other developed economies with such regulations. India is committed through its NDCs to work towards afforestation and increasing the potential of sequestration going ahead by 2030. So with this in mind, we have invited a very diverse panel We have we have representative from European Union. We have someone from Stockholm Environment Institute. We have representation from business, and we have representation from government. So complete ecosystem is getting addressed through this panel, and we would like to hear out from everyone that how they see the sustainability in this particular sector. When we are talking about deforestation, when we are talking about agro and forest-based commodities, how deforestation is going to play a vital role going ahead. As you also mentioned, Bridget, that not only palm, many of the commodities India is importing, and many of us are not aware that the material risk involved within this commodity, because we are not directly impacted by the risk. The deforestation is happening somewhere far east in Indonesia and Malaysia. It looks to be that it's not worth looking into it. But going ahead, things are getting very difficult. Disclosures and transparencies would be very integral to businesses. So how standards and frameworks are going to support the ecosystem? This is what we would like to hear out from these our panelists, and how they see that going ahead, businesses would have to move their investments in a sustainable and more identified risk-free zones. So we have a very clear ambition. We have very clear thought of process that we would like to hear it out from each of the panelists, that what and how they see the things evolving in this sector.
Right. Thanks a lot, Vishal, for those very valuable inputs and insights. I think this is also very closely aligned to the the narrative that India has played a very vital role in sort of contributing also to the G20 agenda. I mean, if you look at the Delhi Declaration, which has been sort of India's sort of contribution together with the other G20 members, there has been a lot of talk about developing sustainable and inclusive global value chains, and the fact that not one country or not one actor can sort of drive this whole process is very clear. And the fact that, if you look at say, for example, if you look at the international value chain on palm oil, it's a very interesting example of how different jurisdictions play out in sort of transition, in sort of moving one commodity from one geography to the other. And essentially, we are talking about the fact that we probably need all the stakeholders, as you have rightly said, to come together and work together to create that transition towards a sustainable and inclusive global value chain of palm oil. It cannot be a top-down, unidirectional sort of approach anymore. There is a greater opportunity and need also for the different stakeholders to listen actively to the challenges and the opportunities across the entire value chain, and then come together to drive this whole transition to happen. So as you rightly pointed out, if we are able to get this kind of insight from the diverse group of stakeholders on how we should come together and through the principle of shared responsibility, really co-create the contour of a sustainable and inclusive value chain on such a commodity like palm oil, which has received so much of criticism globally about being a contributor to deforestation, and create a new narrative that it is possible to sort of to avoid the risk of deforestation if you all come together and really look at this kind of a collaborative initiative or collaborative initiative. So that probably is the message that we would like to share through this session, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, G20 was one such example wherein the necessity, when the governments across the group understood that how the collaboration is required to achieve the sustainable or the NDC goals, each of the countries have them made for themselves. One of the important point, actually, I should have addressed earlier, but I would like to make right now is that going ahead. We have more, and each of us has more realization of the cost incurred for not being sustainable, and the kind of loss what we render, what we get through loss of ecosystem services when we are not addressing the material risk is also very much important for us to understand. So it's not about only understanding sustainability; it's about the cost as a company, as a country, and as an economy we incur when we are not aligning to and when we are not listening to these frameworks or these goals of sustainability or sustainable approaches of development. We may incur. With this, actually, the countries have better realization now, and we want each of the country of G20 actually promised that our policies would be aligned such that we not only promote trade, we also make the ingredients of sustainability standard within the trade, so that whatever are the risks involved within the supply chain get addressed. Of course, Rajat, you said it right.
Right. No, I think that's a very it's a very we are trying to spin sort of a positive story here that that transition towards sustainable commodities, soft commodities is possible, and there are the stars seem to be aligning because there is that realization amongst at the seat of highest economic policy making, which is the G20. And of course, with the presidency moving from India to Brazil, which is another country which is so richly endowed with natural resources and have had a history of deforestation related to commodities. This is an agenda which will continue, and this is a narrative, and this is a discussion which will continue. So going forward, Vishal, your thoughts on. Of course, this has been a partnership that CRB and WWF and other partners we have continued for the last several years to engage with different stakeholders, the private sector, the government, in the states, and other national and international stakeholders. So from WWF's point of view, going forward, what will make you happy, in terms of the agenda? What kind of changes do you see or anticipate or even aspire in this space, or say over the next 3 to 5 years? What would that sort of vision be for you, if I may, as we continue to work together to drive this change?
That's a difficult question, and it's a difficult ask that what will make me happy. But then, of course, we all have some aspiration and some expectation that whatever we are working on throughout the years would reach and would take us somewhere by third or fifth year. So, of course, the goals what we have set together are very acute and very clear, that we want that the material risks involved within the supply chain should be so apparent that each of the stakeholders should be aware. When you are deciding whether to consume or not to consume, at least you should be aware that what kind of risks are involved within the commodity or the product or the services what you're going to use. That is the primemost principle of going ahead, which will guide the companies and the governments and the end users to dictate or lead the market. So that is the least expectation, that at least apparently everybody should know what are the material risks involved, and the decisions would be based on it. Having said that, the regulation, the finances, the expectation of the ecosystem is getting changed. Businesses are coming forward, are forthcoming to align, to understand these risks, and align their investment towards more sensible ways to address those. So, of course, the ecosystem is supporting the purpose as well. Together, we see that we should increase our work in more of the commodities. We are having a long work on palm oil, which of course would require some more years of work going ahead, because we have seen that India has the more focus on production, increasing the production, and of course we would like to work together with the government that how sustainability can be an important ingredient when we are making policies on production. And of course, we would like to look into other commodities as well. Like you mentioned, Brazil, India imports a lot of soy from Brazil. So, it is coming with a material risk of deforestation in these economies. So, and similarly, we have commodities like timber, and I mentioned earlier rubber. So we have a lot of work to do when we are talking about agro and forestry commodities. We would like to expand our work in different commodities so that more of the stakeholders get aware, get to know, more of the users get to know about the efforts.
Great. Thanks a lot, Vishal, for your time today, and really looking forward to continuing this conversation, and also, as you said, looking at the possibility of a very exciting, the prospect of a very exciting session on the 7th of November, requesting all our listeners to join in on the 7th of virtually. So those of you who are outside of Delhi or outside of India, you can also log in and register through the CRB annual conference website, and we look forward to seeing you all at the session. So thank you once again, Vishal. As always, been a pleasure speaking with you, and looking forward to taking this work forward together.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, and I look forward for all our listeners to see them again during the India Sustainability Standard Summit.
Thank you so much. Take care and have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.